Tara, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. And welcome to the fourth session of our first ever virtual South Dakota Week of Work. We're excited to have you all here with us this afternoon and hope that you have already learned a lot, so much, and are going to continue to learn about some of South Dakota's major industries during this week. There's lots of opportunities available to you. And this afternoon, our panel, we're going to dive deeper into the social work and developmental health industry, which we're really excited about. I'm going to start by introducing myself to you guys. I am your moderator for the afternoon. My name is Tanya Bartekoske, and I work for South Dakota Department of Labor as a labor program specialist. And this afternoon, we're going to meet and learn from professionals who have dedicated most of their days and their careers to changing the lives of others through enhancing and improving their well-being, which is really cool. And also, they really help to meet basic and even people's difficult needs each and every day, people they come in contact with and the people that they work with. So remember that this is your time to learn and to ask questions. So please do so. Use the chat feature in Zoom. I know you guys all probably know how to use it. So if there's a question, make sure to throw that in the chat and we'll make sure that we can get that answered, and we'll take breaks for that. So let's find out a little bit more about this versatile growing field from our featured panelists. And what I'm going to have them do is I'm going to have them introduce themselves to you. Give you a little brief introduction to who they are and what they do, starting with Kevin.
Okay, thank you. My name is Kevin Dunn. I am a program manager at the South Dakota Developmental Center in Redfield, South Dakota. Work for the Department of Human Services. And I'll just give you a brief synopsis of what I do. I am basically in charge of day-to-day operations for staff and the clients here at the Developmental Center.
Awesome. Stephanie, why don't you go next?
Okay, my name is Stephanie Beard, and I am an intake therapist and mental health therapist here at Youth and Family Services in Rapid City. And I mainly do trauma assessments for adults all the way up to kids and work a lot with teens and doing virtual therapy.
Great, thank you. Okay, Tanya, your turn.
Hello, I'm Tanya Fritz, and I am the Director of Credentialing with Black Hills Works in Rapid City. I have my master's in social work, and I would say the focus of my job is really on professional growth and development, as well as organizational growth and development. So do a lot of work around trauma-informed practices, and my focus is on helping the helpers. So we serve about 700 individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities. And my primary focus is on the people that work directly with them and how do I support them in their growing and learning and all of those fun things.
That's great. It's very important and needed, especially in the field that you're in. So we're going to get started with our first question for the panel today is really tell the group why you decided to get into this career field or do this kind of work. You know, maybe what was your passion and what kind of brought you to it. And we're going to actually start that question off with Tanya.
All right. Well, I was lucky enough in high school to be able to kind of explore my career. I thought I wanted to be a teacher. And so I volunteered in the classroom and I taught, and it was really exciting and fun. But I quickly realized that what filled my bucket was when I was working one-on-one with kids that were having some challenges. So I ended up getting a bachelor's in psychology and then went on to get a master's in social work. I've spent about 20 years of my career really focused on child abuse in the child welfare world. And as I was doing that, my understanding of the impacts of trauma was growing and kind of shifted my focus to the helpers. And so then I ended up taking a pivot, working with individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities, thought, oh my gosh, you know, do I know anything about this field? And that's the cool thing about social work is you build these skills that are helpful in your personal life and in so many different types of professional work. So you can't get bored as a social worker. So I'm pretty glad that's where I landed.
That's great. It sounds like a great fit for you too. Okay, Stephanie, you're next. Would you please tell us why you chose this field?
For sure. I did not have the chance and opportunity in high school to explore a lot of things, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I actually got started with Black Hills Works, where Tanya is, and that's how I kind of got introduced to the social work field. Moved my way up that way, went to child protection, and ended up really wanting to do individual therapy, mainly with teens. I had not the best start in high school, and I really wish I would have had a therapist and someone who would have understood and kind of met me where I'm at. So my goal is to just be that person that someone can really relate to and really just work through life stuff with, especially with teens. So that's kind of why I got in this way.
Great, thank you. Kevin, your turn.
Well, I would like to say that the career found me because I planned on working here about 6 months. I was a college football coach at Northern State and was just in between jobs and decided to travel 40 miles south. And that was roughly 20 years ago. So I've been here that long, enjoy every day. I have taken different roles throughout my career path here at the Developmental Center, and now I'm more of an administrative role here. But a very rewarding journey, I would say.
That's great. So just to follow up to that, some of you have talked a little bit about it being rewarding and something you've been passionate about, but you know, it also can be a position and occupation that can take a lot out of you. So maybe like talk a little bit about that and some of those. How do you keep your cup full while also trying to fill others' cups and help others? Because you know you're in a helping industry and you're passionate about it, but how do you keep yourselves grounded and keep your own cup full? And with that one, we'll start with Stephanie.
Of course, yes. This is a very draining field sometimes, unfortunately, like the burnout rate's kind of high as well. And I know for myself, just hearing trauma all day long, it's really about self-care. I know that's kind of like a catchphrase right now, but it really is about finding that self-care beyond just bubble baths and stuff like that, but doing things that take care of you mentally as well as filling your cup. So whether it's stuff that you really enjoy, reading, camping, whatever, just getting outdoors and being able to give back to yourself, because it is really draining to help others, but it is really rewarding as well. So yeah, finding those things that really help recharge and be able to take a step out of work for that.
That's great advice. And it sounds like something that can be very valuable in this field. Kevin or Tanya, do you have anything to add to that?
Go ahead, Kevin.
No, I guess I would just say, I mean, I would echo what Stephanie said, first and foremost, but I would say that for me, it's about the success stories. I mean, we deal with a lot of challenging behavior here at the Developmental Center, but to see the growth and the success, and then to see the end game, helping families, helping people, that it's so rewarding to me. And it certainly, I have more good days than bad days, that's for sure.
Awesome. That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, I would add that obviously resilience is something that I'm really passionate about. So we incorporate resilience building within our curriculum for our direct support professionals. We try to model trauma-informed leadership with our frontline and other supervisors. And you know, I think for those of us who get into the helping profession, we natural helpers we're drawn to this often because of just our own lifestyles, what might have happened to us. So sometimes we bring even extra trauma into the work, and then every day you're experiencing and seeing some of that. So in this field, self-care is critical, and it's not selfish. It's actually selfish not to focus on your self-care. And as Stephanie was saying, it's not just the bubble baths and the vacations. It's when you're in the helping profession and you're doing this work, you need to be mindful of the way you're thinking. You need to be doing activities. You know, don't just go get that massage because you've had a bad week. but do you have a ritual and a routine where you're doing self-care every day, every week, so that you're preparing yourself for the next challenging thing that's going to happen, instead of just pampering yourself because you had a rough day?
Right? So there are really great ways to be able to handle stressful positions and stressful things by making sure you take care of yourself. Great advice. Thank you, guys. And a lot of times we get into our career or occupation through a pathway. Sometimes those pathways might be straight from A to B, and I know what I want to do, and I'm going to go here and I'm going to go here. But other times we have a curved pathway. It kind of becomes a journey to find where we actually end up. So it'd be helpful for you guys to maybe share maybe what your pathway looked like. Was it kind of a straight and narrow, or did you know you always wanted to be in this field, or did it take some learning and growing and maybe going down a wrong or different path at times? So with that one, we'll start with Kevin.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I had no idea I was going to take this route. But as I started, and you started helping people and being a part of something bigger, it really was fulfilling to me. And as I would go on and on, as the years went by, I said, well, this is what I want to do. This is what I meant to do. And so my pathway maybe started like this, and then it probably straightened out as the years went by.
Okay, great. Tanya, you're next.
Well, I would say overall, it has been a fairly straight path, but really only because social work is so expansive in everything that you can do. So I've followed that path, but it's required me to do some introspection along the way and keep thinking about, what is it about this field that I love? What are like the specific skills that I have that are maybe slightly different than my coworkers, and how do I capitalize on those and use those? And not being afraid to continually push myself and try new areas, like working in this field that I thought maybe I had not a clue what I was doing, and then finding out, well, no, understanding the foster care system helps with this, and understanding family dynamics helps with this, and being able to kind of cross-reference that knowledge and skills you have.
Okay, go ahead, Stephanie. If you want to tell us a little bit about your path, that'd be great.
Yes, my path, I feel like, wasn't that straight with it. I actually got my bachelor's in health science. I was going to be a radiologist. No, not for me. Couldn't do bone structure and all that good stuff. So like I said, I fell into working actually at Black Hills Works, and I found that I was really talented at working with people that were difficult, and that maybe fired some of their case managers. I just had a weird way of being able to connect with people. And I took that and kind of ran with it and found the social work field when I was looking at master's degrees. And I thought, this is what I want to do. Like Tanya said, you can't get bored. If you don't want to do something, you can go in a completely different field, and it's still social work. We're in so many different aspects. So yeah, I did go that way, and it's been a challenge to get through it, but it's been amazing to get that way, and just trying to find what I wanted to do, and finding that trauma was something I'm very passionate about, and I love working with a little bit of the older kiddos and the younger adults. So kind of a jagged path, but we got there.
It's always interesting to hear professionals talk about their paths, because there's never one way to do something, and it's okay if that changes. And I think that's really important, especially for the students listening in, because I remember when I was in school too, it was the same way. I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to get there. And what I wanted to do has changed so many times. I, like you, was a helper, wanted to help people, thought I should go into counseling. But social work, just like Tanya said, I mean, it's so versatile. You can do so many different things and so many different occupations. There's so many options out there for you that it can change if you want to do something different, and you can do something different, and that's okay. And you don't have to have it all figured out right now. I think that's always really important. I wish I would have known that right away, that it's okay not to know what I'm going to do in 20 years, because not a lot of people do, and it changes and it flows. So thank you for that. Next question we have, and a reminder to everybody listening in to utilize the chat feature. If you have any questions that come up, please throw those in the chat and we will get those answered for you. But next question would be, what is your favorite and your most challenging parts of your job. And we're going to throw this one back to Tanya.
Oh, sure. Hit me with the hard question. My favorite part of my job is I really think about being a social worker as really kind of managing change. And I love that piece. I love helping people kind of get through complicated processes and be self-reflective and think about what they bring to it. And just watching that growth. And, you sit back and you almost can see those aha moments for people. So that's something that definitely I love about my job. As far as challenging, or parts that you don't like, the truth is that every job is going to have those. You don't get away from it. And so probably the most typical answer in this field is you're going to have to do the paperwork. If you don't write about it, you didn't do it. And so, that can be challenging and hard. But, I've also, not necessarily right now, but other times in my field, I would say the hardest part is sometimes knowing that you don't get to control the outcomes. You guide people and you help them think about things and you offer ideas and tools, but ultimately each person is self-determined. They make their own choices and they make their own life, and they're not always the choices you want. So letting go of ownership of the outcomes is probably one of the challenges for me.
I was going to say that has to be a difficult one to figure out. Good answer. Thanks, Tanya. Stephanie, your turn.
I would say the favorite part of what I do with the clinical mental health area is I love the creativity that I can bring to it, and that I'm not kind of in a box with that. There's so many sessions where I really incorporate a lot of the things that my kids enjoy. I've done Harry Potter trauma stuff. I've done anime. Like, I love being creative in it, and that I'm not stuck in some sort of box. I like to be creative in that way and see how it can relate to kids, and how it's, like Tanya said, an aha moment. It makes sense when I'm able to make it more understandable, and when it's something we can relate to, because no one wants to always look at pictures of the brain and stuff like that. It's so much easier when I can show Harry Potter's been through a lot of stuff. So I like that, and I'm gonna definitely echo what Tanya says. The paperwork can be rough. I mean, when you're seeing so many people and having to do it, if it's not documented, it didn't happen, and you have to get it done. And then it can be really rough and really stressful at times, but it's part of the job for sure.
I know when you say paperwork, I got like an instant like, oh, it can be a lot, but it's really important to be able to have something to look back to and refer to, and you're helping people to say, what did we talk about? Because I think the reality is you're only human, and you only can remember so much either too, because you have so many people you're working with, and how are you supposed to remember everything we talked about or everything that happened? So I know it's a really great point, because I think people forget that, because it is a lot of just helping people. But yeah, that paperwork is really important and vital for many reasons. So, okay, Kevin, it's your turn.
Okay, I would say the most rewarding part of my job is, again, seeing the success stories. Seeing people come in, make progress, being able to go home and live closer to their friends and family. That for sure is the greatest part of what I do. Challenges, I would say, behavior is not scripted. And in order to get into the developmental center, it's usually a high degree of behavioral challenges. And I've had 3 phones ringing at the same time. It can happen at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's not Monday through Friday. And that can be the challenging part, along with the documentation and paperwork that comes along with it. It's pretty extensive. We have to follow state and federal regulations that all have their own little piece of the pie. So I'd say that would be the challenging part.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. We do have a question in the chat for the group and for the panelists. The question is, do you deal with mainly mental health patients or more patients with troubled backgrounds? So maybe if we want to touch a little bit about some of the demographics that you serve, and maybe the difference between the mental health and maybe some of those challenging and troubled backgrounds. And I think now we are starting at Stephanie. You want to go? Thank you.
Love that question too. So yes, for my demographics, I work with as young as 2 all the way up to any age of adults. And there's definitely going to be mental health diagnoses in there, as well as troubled backgrounds. We're not too picky. We are here for counseling and trauma, so that's kind of our specialty. But we work with quite a bit of a range. So yeah, you're going to see kind of both of those. I feel like in the social services, they kind of overlap and intertwine with that. Everyone's got some troubled stuff going on in the background, and sometimes that leads to mental health. So yeah, I see both of that within my job. Sure.
Hey, Kevin, do you have anything to add?
Oh, yeah, as far as our agency, that in order to be eligible for our agency, you have to usually have some sort of behavioral issue along with an intellectual disability or developmental disability. I would say that right now, 100% of our residents have a co-occurring diagnosis with mental health along with some sort of intellectual disability.
And just before Tanya goes, co-occurring would kind of be like where they're kind of happening at the same time. Is that kind of right description of what that means?
That would be
Having one without the other?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Tanya.
Yeah, I would say that our backgrounds, our childhood experiences, they're a significant impact on our mental health as we grow up and even as an adult. So a lot of times that's all kind of mixed in together. And when I started working at Black Hills Works, one of the things that I noticed among both the people that we support and the people that work here is it's truly a microcosm of our community. So we're supporting individuals who have poverty issues, who have drug and alcohol issues, who have relationship issues, who have, aggression and just all kinds of things. So really, if it exists in the community, we're going to be supporting those individuals through all of those different areas.
Okay, great. And then we had a follow-up question too in the chat that asked if you work with people who are physically impaired or maybe have physical disabilities. If anybody wants to take that one, has that demographic?
Yeah, 100%. We have lots of individuals who their disabilities show up in a physical form, and that can impact mental health and stuff too. You think about if in my day-to-day life, the things that I want to do as an adult, I can't do or can't do easily because the community doesn't have accommodations, or they, just something as simple as having the right size table or different things. And then that impacts your social interactions, your mental health, all of those areas.
Okay, Stephanie, Kevin, anything to add to that, or go on?
I would say that she covered it quite well. We have, OT, PT departments within our agency. We have a range of physical disabilities, intellectual disabilities, mental health issues. Some of them with all three. So.
Awesome. Okay, great. So next panel question. We're going to start with Tanya on this one. And this one is, what kind of education, training, or certification is needed for a position in your field or for your position?
So I will speak to that from two different angles. The majority of the staff that work here work in the field of a direct support professional. And that is, you're wearing so many different hats. At times you're working with behaviors, at times you're working with personal cares, at times you're helping to transport, you're working with budgets. I mean, you have all of these different skills. And for those individuals, you are eligible to work with a high school degree. And then we actually offer some internal training to support your certification and credentialing and allow you to earn higher raises while you're building your skills and knowledge. So you really can get into this field. And, as Stephanie said, that was kind of her opening moment. And Kevin too, you walk into it and you don't always get to walk out. It pulls at your heartstrings and you get connected. So it's a great way to get started. Even if you think you want to go down a bit different path and you want to get a college degree, or you want to work on your master's, this is an area where you can get some really strong skills. Like I said, though, for me personally, I have my master's in social work. So if you want to do, more of that clinical work, that is what's going to be required.
Okay, Stephanie, go ahead.
Okay. And me and Tanya both have the same background. We both have a master's in social work. So for that, we kind of have a similar one. But for the mental health and counseling industry, there's going to be mainly like two different routes you can go, as whether a master's of social work or a master's of counseling. And with that, it is a master's degree, 2 to 3 years, kind of depending on the program. And then after that, during that, you have internships, which are many, many hours of doing it, like 900 something, it's ridiculous. And then after that, you have licensing. So I believe both me and Tanya are certified social workers. So we took a test and we got our hours and we got that. After that, for a social worker wanting to do private practice, you get a PIP here in South Dakota. So that is 2 years of supervision under a clinical social worker and doing that. And that is what I'm currently working on right now. Counseling is a little bit different, but it's the same kind of thing. We all do internships, hours. We have to maintain our credentialing. So we have to continue going to classes and upping our skills throughout. So it is a lifelong learning career, and you have to keep your skills and your ethics up to date on that. So that's for social work.
Thank you, Stephanie. Kevin, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would just echo what Tanya said about a direct support professional. That's a good way to get started. Just requires a high school degree. But we have here at the Developmental Center, we have a lot of different areas or entities. So it just depends on what we have everywhere from an accountant to have an accounting degree to occupational therapy, physical therapy, a psychologist, psychiatrist. It depends on where you fit in that mold. I know me personally, I'm completing my master's in public administration at this point. It just kind of depends on what area that you fall under. We have a job for everyone. Come on down.
Thank you. It actually kind of helped maybe to answer a question in the chat. One of the questions was, we have a few questions I'm going to get to, but one of them was, do you have to be a certain age to work in this industry? And one of the things I was going to ask you all was, with your positions, there's some credentialing and schooling that go with it, but with your line of work in this industry, there are, I'm assuming there's probably some entry-level positions. Kevin, you talked about that just a little bit, but there's probably positions that that younger people could get, or you could get before college, maybe to help out. If you maybe wanted to touch on that. The question was, do you have to be a certain age to work in this industry? 18 or 21 was the question, but maybe if you want to touch on, I know I was going to maybe throw this to Tanya, but we're going to start with Kevin on this one because he just kind of touched on that a little bit. So if you want to just elaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. We welcome shadowing experiences. We have temp employment. Generally, a high school diploma is generally with the general requirements, or a GE, but everything, there's a job for everyone. But right now during COVID, it's a little tougher as far as who we're allowing in and out of campus. But I would say if you want to learn more about it, reach out and do a shadowing experience. Do look at temp employment to see if that is the field for you. Because you really don't know unless you see it or you look at it to get involved.
Okay, Tanya, it's going back up to you.
Okay, and yeah, so in the adult developmental disability world, typically 18 is the age that you need to be. I think when you get into child welfare, it usually is more 21. So it kind of depends on what route you go. So for our 18-year-olds, they can come in, and like I said, you can start and you can work in employment. You can help people find jobs. You can help people with their daily cares. There's so many different things that you can do, and just try those areas out. And as Kevin talked about, we employ accountants and psychiatrists, all of these different entities as well. And so you partner with them and you work with them and you get to know them, and that might, weave your course and your life a little bit by, what spurs your interest and gets you excited.
Good answer. Thanks, Tanya. Stephanie, do you want to wrap that one up? Do you have anything to add?
Yeah. Unfortunately, for providing actual like mental health counseling and therapy, you do have to have a master's degree in licensing and stuff. But there's definitely other routes, like they were saying, to kind of get involved. If it's certain populations you want to work with or certain agencies like Black Hills Works and stuff like that, you can get involved in other ways doing case management. I think I turned like 19 when I was a case manager. So it really, you can get in different routes. Like we said earlier, there's ways to get in with the population and get used to it, but providing actual therapy, you do need a master's degree at least in counseling or social work.
Great, thank you. And I know too, just to chime into that a little bit, when I graduated college, I wanted to work in the mental health field and started as a counselor with no education, or with I was still working on my bachelor's degree at the Human Services Center. So that was not direct mental health therapy though, but it was still helping people who were struggling with some of those day-to-day things and some of that. So I really got that experience. And like Kevin said, if you have interest in it, the more exposure you can get to that field is really going to benefit you. If any of you are planning to attend the session on Friday, we're going to walk through some of the next steps and some of the ways you can get connected with some of these industry people, because getting some of that hands-on experience and getting a taste of what it would be like is going to be super helpful for you in deciding if this is what's really what you want to do for the rest of your life. So tune in on Friday if you're going to be there. But I wanted to ask another question that was in the chat. One of the questions was, can you go into a field where you just work with those who have mental health issues like anxiety, depression, things like that, versus having it combined with developmental and physical disabilities? Is that an option for them? And I think, I don't remember where we were at. I think we're going to Kevin? Stephanie, we're at Stephanie, sorry.
Yeah, for mental health, with dealing just directly with mental health, you can go, like I said earlier, a couple different routes. You can do a counseling degree or a social work degree. I think sometimes social work gets a little bit of a bad rap for not doing therapy, because we're naturally supposed to be doing like child protection, but we do so many things. So I think some people get confused with the social work degree. But yeah, you can, with being in social work, you can do just straight mental health counseling and therapy. You don't have to go into different routes. I think what I love about this degree is the flexibility to do it versus counseling. You are stuck in counseling. You can't quite branch out as much as you would like. So, but yeah, there's definitely ways to just stick with mental health and not do anything outside of that. There's definitely ways to do that.
Great, thank you. Kevin, anything to add?
No, I think she covered it quite well. There's actually a need for mental health in the state of South Dakota. So yeah, it's, if that's the route you'd like to go, like I said, there's a need in the state of South Dakota right now.
Perfect, thank
I would
you.
just add, yeah, I mean, I always encourage people to stay broad at the beginning and have all of those experiences. But then you have this ability, I mean, you can work with just around anxiety and yet you can actually work around just sports anxiety, or just, I mean, like you can specialize to the degree that your community needs, whatever that community need is.
So just to kind of go a little further into that, Tanya, if you, like when you talk about going general and kind of being more broad and maybe then being able to hone in on like a specific mental health issue or field, would social work be a really great place to start if they're looking at a post-secondary option?
Well, I'm a little bit biased, but I definitely think so. You know, like I said, I think social workers manage change, and that's never going to go away, and we're always going to do that. And you can do that from a counseling standpoint. You can do that from an administrative standpoint. You can do that from community change. And, you know, so whatever your passion and your focus is, you can really hone in on that. You can work with a certain vulnerable population. You can take something that you're really skilled at and tie it in together with mental health. They're just unbelievable options. And the state of South Dakota really, they work well with social workers. Our ability to get licensed And to maintain our licensure is pretty streamlined. It is ongoing. You're going to do it forever. You're always going to show that you're learning, but the process is pretty streamlined. And also there are quite a few positions within South Dakota that mandate that it has to be done by somebody with their master's in social work. So especially some of your oversight, if you're signing off on other people's work or reviewing things, a lot of times the state will require somebody with their CSW or their certified social work license to do that work.
So you're saying the job outlook is really good. I'm hearing. Awesome. Another question came into the chat asking about stress levels and is this a stressful job? So that now we're going to start off with Kevin.
I would say that it can be. I think there's days that can be very stressful. Especially here where I work, their behavioral challenges can be stressful, and that's why it's important that we train our employees. We train them to handle those stressful moments and then what to do after those stressful moments, to cope and to, talk to others and get back in the right frame of mind before they're working with those folks again.
Okay, back up to Tanya. Do you need to add to that?
For me personally, I would say that this is a stressful job and I'm really grateful for it. Because for me, I know, knowing myself, I know that I don't want to do the same thing every day. So I can't have constant change without having that stress piece that goes with it. The piece about the stress is that it means that you have to be dedicated to taking care of yourself and setting a lot of boundaries. It is, I've worked in lots of different areas, but I can think, in the child abuse area, it's very easy to hear the trauma and to hear the stories and to take that home with you at night and then to not sleep well and then to feel guilty. Sometimes they feel, I've worked with staff who felt guilty even having a nice evening or enjoying their family because they knew what was happening to others. And kind of like I said before, that self-care isn't selfish. We also have to be able to put some boundaries around our work so that we can go home and fill our bucket. Otherwise, we will not be there for that next kid that needs us or that next individual that we're supporting that needs us because we have not replenished ourselves.
Great insight. Thank you. Stephanie, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, of course, this is going to be a stressful position. I mean, we're dealing with other people's lives. We're working through sometimes the worst day or worst thing that's ever happened for someone. And I think we are mainly the people that when crisis hits, we're the ones responding. We're the ones that people go to and look for that support in that direction. So it is very stressful. And like this guy said, doing boundaries and being there can definitely be a job that people who like adrenaline and high paced things, it's great. But yeah, you have to take care of yourself because you're going to hear some awful things. You're going to have to deal with a lot of stressful things, whether it's coming from the state, whether it's coming from an individual. It's a lot, but it's doable for sure.
Thank you. We only have 2 minutes left, so this will be the final question. And I think this one goes back up to Tanya to start. So final question is going to be, what personal characteristics does someone need to have, and maybe what advice would you give to students listening in who might be interested in this career field?
All right, so I think that a love of learning and a willingness to continue to grow is critical. I can look back and the work that I was doing 20 years ago that I thought was really high quality work, some of it would be frowned upon by today's standards. So you need to be willing to do better as you know more and continue that journey of growing. Also being able to have that strong emotional regulation and being able to set those boundaries is going to be critical. As far as getting started, there's so many things that you can do. You can watch movies and read books that are very entertaining that also give you glimpses into, the world of trauma and mental health. You can volunteer, you can shadow, as Kevin was saying. Most importantly, just know that everybody's asking you right now, like, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? just decide what you want to do for the next period of time, right? Like you're going to be constantly renegotiating your life for the next, hopefully 80 years. So know that you're going to start this path and it might lead to the next path, or you might take a hard right, and give yourself grace in not knowing what you want to do when you're 50 years old.
I love that advice. Thanks, Tanya. Stephanie, your turn.
I think for characteristics that you need in this field is being empathetic and being able and wanting to help someone. Being able to work in crisis is always great. And I think just being able to listen and wanting to learn and wanting to help is definitely things that you need to be able to. I think with social work in specifically, you want to be able to advocate for people and be the one that rocks the boat and amplifies others' voices, because we're loud and this is what we're here for. We're here to advocate. We don't go with the flow a lot of times. We're out there all the time. For advice for high school students, I think just because you're in the mental health field doesn't mean you have your stuff together. You don't need to be someone who is like excellent at self-care right away and boundaries right away. We all chose this profession for a reason, whether it's something that happened to us, something that we saw that we want to fix. We're not all perfect people. We're a little broken, and that's why we're here. And I think it's okay to have anxiety and be a therapist. It's okay to have other things and be in this field. It just adds to your validity. It adds to your experience, and it makes you a great therapist. So don't feel bad that you have something and you can't do it. You can definitely do it.
I love that, because everybody has different qualities and different parts of themselves, but it can all add and enhance what you're doing. That's great. Thanks, Stephanie. Kevin, final one to you.
Well, I would echo what both Tanya and Stephanie said, but I also say, like, when we're hiring somebody, what are we looking for? Well, we're looking for people that have good listening skills, good communication skills, that are flexible, people that care about others. I mean, and that's what we're looking for. And those are the people that are successful here. And I look at some of our long-term employees. I mean, they're rock stars. That's what they do. And I'm just happy to be a part of a great group of people that get to make a difference on a day-to-day basis. And like I said, fortunate to be here as long as I have. And I can't believe I have been here for 20 years.
That's great. Thank you. And that kind of wraps up our questions. There was a question in the chat about what the pay is like. We do have some resources on Department of Labor's website. There's some research you can do, because in this field, it's kind of ebbs and flows based on what you do. And that kind of really determines what the pay is like. So there's some research that you can do with SD My Life and on the Department of Labor website to kind of figure out what some of those pay scales could be, just because we're short on time. But I wanted to wrap it up and thank our panelists for joining us today. You guys did great. Thank you so much for your passion and your insight. You can really feel that you guys love what you do. And I think that says a lot about that field. And if you care a lot about people, then this could be a really great field for you. So thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. And have a great rest of week of work, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.